I think it's time I started talking about one of my new favorite series, Arcane Ascension! Hey everyone, welcome back to Andrew's Wizardly Reads, and as always guys, I am Andrew. And today guys, we are doing a Why You Should Read of Andrew Rowe's Arcane Ascension. But before we get into that, please do me a favor. Like this video, subscribe to the channel as it does help the channel grow. And while you're doing all that, you can check the description box down below for links to all my social media, including information about the Patreon if you want to help support what I do here on Andrew's Wizardly Reads. It is always greatly appreciated. And frankly, like, without my patrons, I don't think I could do this at the level that I am currently doing it. So thank you all to who support me and to all the viewers who watch. With that out of the way, it is time to talk about Arcane Ascension by Andrew Rowe. And this is about an 11-book series that I am not fully caught up on yet, but I have read around 7 of these books, I think. Anyway, I started reading this sometime last year in 2023, and I started, of course, with what I thought was the first book, and that is Sufficiently Advanced Magic, showcased here with the Wraithmark Creative Edition that I backed on Kickstarter. But essentially, this is one of the sub-series of Sufficiently Advanced Magic. And the reason I want to talk about those sub-series is Andrew Rowe plays a little fast and loose with timelines here. And so I kind of want to talk about my preferred reading order and what I think you should do. But first, let me just tell you about Andrew Rowe's writing. Hands down, it is so incredibly entertaining. Within the last month, I have read 5 of these books, like just one right after the other. I couldn't stop. I read this entire trilogy right here. This is The War of Broken Mirrors, and arguably where you should start the series. But basically, I read this entire trilogy back to back to back, which I have not done in over, I think, 2 years. It has been a hot minute since I just read a trilogy from start to finish within a single month. I've also started, and I'm almost caught up on Weapons and Wielders, which is technically chronologically the next series. So I'm just having so much fun with these. There's a lot of comedy, there's a lot of witty retorts and witticisms, great characterization, interesting yet somehow complex magic systems. It's all progression fantasy. I would say it's lit RPG, but it's not lit RPG. There are some elements of lit RPG, but I would more classify Arcane Ascension within the realm of progression fantasy. And we've kind of got 2 different main protagonists. We've got Cerulean, or we've got Corin Cadence. And it depends on what timeline we're following. If we're just doing this series, Sufficiently Advanced Magic Arcane Ascension Book 1, and I guess I call the whole universe Arcane Ascension. I don't know what the whole universe is called, but I just call the whole thing Arcane Ascension. But there is a sub-series called Arcane Ascension. This is Corin's story. Corin appears in other stories with kind of little flashbacks or little tie-ins where like Karis will mention him, but for all of the other books up to this point, we're following Karis Cerulean, who appears within Arcane Ascension. You can see where we're kind of getting a little wonky here with the timelines. But one of the things I want to mention is if you like representation within your stories, Arcane Ascension has it in spades. Corin, I believe, is on the spectrum. So we've got autistic representation in a main character, which I absolutely love. This series is also incredibly respectful to LGBTQ+, non-binary, all of that, with just respecting people's pronouns and their sexualities. This series does that very, very well. And so I just really respect the execution of how this is done. And then one of the things that I do want to talk about is it's got one of the best love triangles I've ever seen. It's from a demigod, a dragon, and a sword. And it is pure comedy. I know I may have lost you right at love triangle. It's not a traditional sort of love triangle. It's more of a comedy love triangle. It's more of a will they, won't they type of deal, but it's between a demigod, a dragon, and a sword. And I just think it's absolutely hilarious. Now, what reading order do I recommend that you read these in? Well, it's kind of a hard thing to say because technically the story starts right here with Sufficiently Advanced Magic. And this is the story through line that I'm going to recommend you not follow. Because basically you go from this to then you move on to On the Shoulder of Titans, which here is the rest of the books. Well, I still need the 4th book, but On the Shoulder of Titans is book 2, which follows directly after Sufficiently Advanced Magic. And then from within the story, you then jump back to 6 Sacred Swords. However, if you read 6 Sacred Swords after you have done On the Shoulder of Titans, it will spoil about half of this trilogy, because this trilogy takes place before this one. So the reading order that I suggest is doing a chronological read, which is basically War of Broken Mirrors, then moving on to Weapons and Wielders, and then doing Arcane Ascension. Now, the way that I've currently been reading it is I did the first 2 here, then I read 6 Sacred Swords, realized that I was missing something, jumped back, and did the entirety of Weapons and Wielders, then came back to read book number 2, Diamantine, and that's kind of where I'm currently at. But I'm very excited because technically after Diamantine, I can come back and do book 3 of Arcane Ascension. And this may sound confusing because it kind of is confusing, but never fear. No matter what order you read this in, it is entertaining. I will say the one that has the most comedy in it is Weapons and Wielders. This one is really, really funny. We get Reka, we get Karis, we get Dawn. Just fantastic characterizations. Their banter is amazing. And then, of course, within Defying Destiny, we follow Karis, Talion, we follow Lydia, Hastings. We get to kind of follow Paladin orders and tournaments and trials. To become a paladin, we get to learn about deities and demigods and 3 different magic systems, which I kind of suggest not paying attention to the magic systems within this series because it doesn't quite really all that matter. And it can get a little confusing just because there's like 3 different ones and they will reference multiple magic systems and you can kind of get caught up in the craziness. But I've just had so much fun, and I have so much love for all of these series that I can't quite put them down. I haven't been able to walk away from the series and take a break to read other books because I am just that entertained. On average, I would give almost all of these books a 4 to a 4.5 star rating. Nothing has been like particularly 5-star rating, but I mean, that's still a very high rating on average. Like, it's just so fun, so entertaining. I've had a lot of laughs. There's a lot of action, lots of combat, and then you get a lot of great progression elements within what I would consider the main series that follows Corrin, because a lot of the other stuff is just kind of filling in the backstory. Now, do you need to fill in the backstory? I don't know. I've only read 2 books in the main series, but I have read 5 books in the backstory series, and honestly, I like learning more about Karis Cerulean. I think he is just such an interesting character. He's funny, he's got a strong moral code, he doesn't like to kill unnecessarily, but he has such a passionate love of combat. He just likes a good old brawl, he likes to get into a fight, and if you tell him that there's a difficult fight coming up, he gets excited. But he also doesn't want to, like, actively kill people or do lasting damage. He just likes to fight. Like, I don't know how else to put that. It's fantastic and it's fascinating. And then Corrin is just very focused on getting stronger, and he wants to become a spire climber, and he wants to find his brother, and he just wants to do well in school, all while kind of avoiding his just awful, awful father. But that, guys, is just a general overview. And I hope, if anything, I've enticed you to just kind of pick these up. I'll show you the covers while I'm at it. This is, of course, the Kickstarter edition, but it is gorgeous. This is Sufficiently Advanced Magic. I will show you the cover of each one. This is On the Shoulder of Titans. I really like this cover, and I just think it was such an amazing read. I had so much fun with On the Shoulder of Titans. I just got this one in the mail yesterday. This is the torch that ignites the star. This is book 3. And then within Weapons and Wielders, we have got the 6 Sacred Swords. We've got Diamantine and Soulbrand. And this Soulbrand is just as thick as these two combined. So I don't know if this one's going to end up feeling a little bit bloated, but I'm still very excited to read it because I've just met Soulbrand within Diamantine, and I am intrigued. And then, of course, we have got The War of Broken Mirrors, where I personally recommend you start these books right here. We have got, in no particular order... Yeah, there we go. Forging Divinity is book number 1. I decided to show them to you in order. We have got Stealing Sorcery, and we have got Defying Destiny. And of this trilogy, I would have to say Forging Divinity was probably my favorite, just because we get to kind of deal with Talion and Lydia just kind of hanging out, and it's a smaller cast. The cast does expand in these 2 books, and we get to meet a lot of really interesting characters, and the world kind of expands. Book number 2 is more of a trials to become paladins, and then book number 3 leads directly into 6 Sacred Swords. Like, the end of this book leads directly into 6 Sacred Swords. Like, it picks immediately following the events of how the trilogy ends. And so I guess it's just a direct continuation. But it's a lot of fun. They're very easy to read. They're very fast-paced. And they're narrated by Nick Podell on audio, which I highly recommend. They're available on Kindle Unlimited. So you can read these for free with a Kindle Unlimited subscription, and then possibly just whisper sync the audio to get that amazing performance from Nick Podell. I highly, highly recommend that you do so. But that is really just me harping on how much I've enjoyed this series. I hope this has been something that will entice you to pick up this series and try it as well. But let me know in the comments if this sounds like something you would be interested in, or if you've already tried it and what you thought. That's all I really got today, guys. So till next time, peace out, stay magical, bye. And as always, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons. Thank you for supporting my passion and my hobby. It means the world to me.